I was astonished when I saw her. It's embarrassing. She looks older. I didn't believe she's Lisa I used to know. If we are going to be together, she have to wear her wig. She's not gonna go with her short hair. I want her to meet my friends tonight. But if she don't wear the long hair, my friends will be embarrassed. My friends will judge her.
Let's get the money out of the ATM. And then I want to go for a walk.
Why are you like this?
What? What's wrong?
Nothing. It is your hair.
I took it off so it could breathe.
The moment Daniel saw Lisa in the mirror, something in him shifted fast. Not loud, not dramatic, but sharp enough to change the temperature in the room. Viewers saw surprise on his face, but what followed looked heavier than shock. His posture tightened. His eyes didn't stay curious. They went guarded. That was the turn. Welcome to Reality Drama Files. I'm Lily, and if you follow this show closely, you know one small moment can flip an entire storyline. Subscribe and tell me in the comments if you felt the energy change too, because this scene did not land like a simple reveal. It landed like a trigger. On screen, the focus looked cosmetic. Hair, appearance, a surface-level twist. But watch Daniel's body, not just his words. His shoulders pulled in. His tone went flat. The reaction looked less like disappointment and more like alarm. That kind of reaction usually doesn't come from looks. It comes from control slipping. It comes from surprise hitting a nerve. What made this heavier is what viewers did not see. The edit showed a reaction, but not the buildup inside him. When someone freezes instead of reacting, it often means they are dealing with something older than the moment. In my opinion, this didn't start in that room. That room only flipped a switch. There's a pattern some fans have pointed out across Daniel's behavior. When he feels caught off guard, he doesn't lean in. He pulls back. Fast. Not with anger, with distance. That tells you this was not about style. It was about trust, or at least his version of trust. For some people, surprise equals danger, not logically, emotionally. Lisa, on the other side, appeared ready to stand in her truth. That takes courage on reality TV, but courage in one person can feel like loss of control to another. That's where relationships break quietly. Not with shouting, with silence. You could see the silence forming. He wasn't processing out loud. He was shutting down inward. That's not a fashion reaction. That's a protection move. Stay with this, because what this moment stirred in Daniel connects to something earlier that viewers were never shown. And it explains why this felt bigger than hair. Because the real question is not what Daniel saw in the mirror. The real question is what memory this moment woke up inside him, and why his face changed before his words ever did. Early on, Daniel and Lisa did not sell chaos. They sold a story that looked clean, controlled, and easy to believe. The kind of relationship that feels safe to root for. Smiles on camera. Confident energy. A version of love that looked finished, not fragile. That's what the audience saw. That's also what Daniel leaned into. Long-distance relationships leave space. Not empty space. Imagination space. When you don't live daily reality with someone, you fill in blanks with hope, fantasy, and what you want to see. You build a picture in your head. Over time, that picture can start to matter more than the real person, especially when the show rewards polished moments. Daniel didn't just fall for Lisa. He fell for the version of Lisa that fit neatly into the story he was telling himself. The version that matched his expectations. The version that felt predictable. Predictability feels like safety to people who fear emotional surprises. That's not a character flaw. That's a coping style. Reality TV makes this worse. The camera encourages highlight reels, Not messy middle moments. Not the awkward truths. Not the small things that shape trust. So the relationship looked stronger on screen than it probably felt off screen. The distance helped protect that illusion. No shared mornings, no shared stress, no daily friction to test how real the bond was. When you don't see the full person every day, you love the idea of them. That's powerful. But it's also risky, because when reality finally shows up, it doesn't arrive gently. It arrives all at once. Daniel invested emotionally in a version of Lisa that lived partly in his head. That's not rare. That's human. But it also means when something breaks that image, the reaction can feel extreme. Not because of what changed, because of what was lost. Lisa, meanwhile, was living her full reality the whole time. The real version of herself, not the edited one. When those two versions collide, someone always feels misled, even if no one intended to mislead. That's why the mirror moment felt so heavy. It wasn't new information. It was the collapse of a picture Daniel had been protecting. And here's where it gets interesting. Fans saw the tension start after the reveal. But people close to the situation noticed cracks earlier. Subtle shifts, shorter patience, different energy, signs that the polished image was already under pressure before the audience caught on. Because the question isn't when viewers noticed the change. The real question is when producers noticed it, and why the edit didn't show those early warning signs. That timing changes how this whole story feels. The mirror night did not explode. That's what made it louder. No shouting, no dramatic exit in that instant. What you saw instead was a slow shift in energy, the kind you feel before you understand. Daniel's face tightened. His movements became smaller. His eyes stopped searching and started avoiding. Those are not the signals of someone reacting to style. Those are the signals of someone trying to regain control. Watch the pacing. He didn't lean in. He didn't ask curious questions. He paused. Long pauses. The kind that create distance without saying a word. Silence can be louder than confrontation. Silence is where people hide when they feel overwhelmed. Body language tells stories, words don't. His shoulders pulled back. His stance looked guarded. The energy shifted from connection to self-protection. That's not a judgment. That's a pattern people show when something hits a deeper nerve than expected. If this was only about appearance, the reaction would have looked different. Confusion, awkward humor, even light frustration. What showed up instead looked like fear of losing footing. Like the moment didn't fit the version of reality he was holding on to. That's why some fans felt the reaction didn't match the situation. The intensity felt out of proportion. Which raises a bigger question. Was Daniel reacting to what he saw, or to what the surprise represented to him? For people who struggle with sudden change, surprise can feel like betrayal. Not because someone did something wrong, but because control slipped away. That reframes the entire scene. Not shallow, not cruel, but emotionally loaded in a way that the edit could not fully show. Lisa, in that moment, was watching a man pull away without explaining why. That kind of silence lands hard. Silence can feel like judgment. Silence can feel like rejection, even when the other person is simply overwhelmed. From Lisa's side, there was a reveal. From Daniel's side, there was a shock. Those two experiences are not equal, but they collided in the same room. The camera caught the pause. It didn't catch the internal story Daniel was telling himself. That's where the real tension lived. Because what mattered wasn't what he said, it was what he didn't say, and how Lisa interpreted that silence in real time. And that interpretation changed everything that came after. From Lisa's side, this moment wasn't about hiding. It was about showing up as herself. That takes nerve on any stage. On reality TV, it takes even more. The confidence people see from her often works like armor. Strong energy, bold presence, It protects vulnerability underneath. When someone chooses to reveal something personal on camera, they are taking a risk. Not only with their partner, but with millions of viewers. That changes the emotional weight of the moment. It's no longer private. It becomes public identity. Any rejection in that space cuts deeper. Lisa's public response later carried that mix of strength and hurt. She didn't fold. She defended herself. But defense is not the same as safety. You can stand tall and still feel exposed. Confidence and vulnerability often exist at the same time. Reality TV makes insecurities louder. Every reaction becomes a storyline. Every pause becomes a clip. That pressure doesn't create feelings, but it magnifies them. If Lisa already felt unsure about how fully accepted she was, this moment likely confirmed fears she never said out loud. At the same time, strategy matters. Choosing when and how to reveal personal truths affects how they land. That's not blame. That's human dynamics. Timing shapes interpretation. What feels empowering to one person can feel destabilizing to another. The deeper question is whether Lisa felt emotionally safe before this reveal. Emotional safety isn't about approval. It's about trust that the other person can handle your truth without pulling away. If that safety wasn't fully there, then this moment was always going to be risky. And when Daniel withdrew, the balance shifted. Not loudly, quietly. Power in relationships often moves through silence. The person who pulls back holds control over the emotional temperature. The person who reaches feels the loss of leverage. Lisa went from revealing to reacting, from standing in her truth to responding to his distance. That flip matters. It changes who feels secure and who feels unsettled. Because once one partner starts emotionally stepping back, the relationship stops feeling equal, and the question becomes who is chasing and who is deciding. That shift set the tone for everything that followed. Trust and secrecy sit close to each other in stressed relationships. What one person sees as normal privacy, the other can read as concealment. Wigs are common. They are style. They are personal choice. For many people, they are part of identity and presentation, not deception. On its own, a wig does not equal a lie. That's where Daniel's reaction deserves scrutiny. The jump from surprise to suspicion is not neutral. It shows black and white thinking, either fully known or fully hidden, either safe or unsafe. Real relationships don't work that way. People reveal layers over time. That's not trickery. That's intimacy. From a fair angle, Daniel didn't only react to hair. He reacted to a feeling. A sudden shift between what he thought he knew and what he saw. But emotional logic and rational logic are not the same. Emotional logic says, I feel thrown off, so something is wrong. Rational logic says, a new detail does not erase everything else. That gap between those two logics is where conflict grows. If Daniel treated the surprise as proof of dishonesty, then every small difference became evidence. That's how one moment turns into a pattern in someone's mind, even if no real pattern exists. The counterpoint is strong. Plenty of couples learn new things months or years in. Hairstyles, insecurities, health issues, past relationships. Learning is part of bonding. If every new layer is framed as betrayal, no relationship survives. So the question becomes less about wigs and more about emotional interpretation. Did Daniel see a personal choice, or did he see a threat to his sense of control and certainty? Control matters here. Surprise removes control. For people sensitive to emotional risk, that feels dangerous. Another layer sits off camera. Big reactions rarely form in isolation. People talk. Friends, family, producers, online voices. Even one offhand comment can turn doubt into conviction. If someone reinforces your fear, It feels justified. Who Daniel spoke to in private matters more than most viewers realize. A single outside opinion can tip the scale from uncertainty to action. Because once fear gets social approval, it stops feeling like fear and starts feeling like truth. That's where outside influence enters the story. Friends, family, and online chatter can feel like background noise, but in high-stress moments, they become a pressure cooker. Every opinion starts small, but repeated voices shape perception. If someone close hints that Daniel should be cautious, or online fans cast judgment, the uncertainty inside him starts to feel real. Not just real, inescapable. Confirmation bias takes over quietly. Once he leans toward fear, every new detail is filtered through that lens. A small pause becomes a sign of betrayal. A thoughtful look becomes a warning. What started as private doubt solidifies into public certainty. Even before he says a word, the mind fills gaps faster than the camera can record them. That's why social input matters. Reality TV doesn't exist in a vacuum. Even when cameras aren't rolling, opinions travel. Daniel's inner alarm likely escalated because of voices outside the room, echoing what his brain already feared. What's interesting is that viewers only saw fragments. The private conversations, subtle nudges, and off-camera pressure amplified his internal reaction. At the same time, this raises a deeper question. Did these external voices push him toward action earlier than fans realized? Was the thought of legal steps forming quietly before the cameras captured it? Often, decisions on shows like this aren't spontaneous. They simmer behind closed doors, influenced by both memory and counsel before breaking into view. Because when private doubt is reinforced by others, the line between feeling anxious and feeling justified disappears. That blending of personal fear and outside pressure can make timing feel inconsistent. Moments that seem sudden on screen are often years of pattern, shaped in part by voices no one outside the inner circle sees. Filming a reality show is a pressure unlike everyday life. Every conversation, every glance, every small reaction is recorded, replayed, and edited. That pressure doesn't create feelings, but it magnifies them. Exhaustion builds quietly. Emotional reserves run low. Small annoyances feel huge. Moments that might be handled calmly in private take on weight under the lens. Daniel was navigating that pressure on top of personal shock. The cameras didn't just observe. Their presence changes timing. Every pause is longer. Every hesitation is noticed. Under fatigue, the brain defaults to protection. He didn't lash out. He didn't negotiate. He withdrew. That withdrawal isn't cruelty. It's a stress signal amplified by filming conditions. Production schedules are tight. Scenes are compressed. Reactions are expected to land quickly. When life is forced into beats, your body reacts faster than your reasoning. That's why moments like the mirror reveal look amplified on screen. It's not always performance. It's stress making instinct louder. Viewers see the withdrawal. Lisa senses it immediately. Even without words, she reads it. Her energy changes. She starts responding, trying to gauge the distance she feels. The shift is subtle, but real. That emotional gap is a point of no return waiting to form. Once one partner steps back repeatedly, the balance tilts. Because when filming amplifies instinct over reflection, small cracks turn into chasms before anyone can notice. The moment Daniel pulled away quietly, Lisa's perception of him started changing in real time. Setting the stage for what comes next. Emotional safety is invisible, but essential. When someone expects consistency and predictability, even small surprises can feel threatening. For Daniel, the mirror moment wasn't just a change in appearance. It triggered a feeling that something familiar was suddenly unsafe. That feeling is often experienced as betrayal, even when no deceit exists. It's not about judgment. It's about instinct. People who tie security to predictability react strongly when their mental picture shifts abruptly. Surprise doesn't automatically equal wrongdoing, but for someone primed by past hurts, it can feel like the foundation of trust is cracking. That's what viewers saw in Daniel's hesitation, in his pauses, in the way he pulled back without explanation. A fair perspective also considers Lisa. Her choice to reveal herself was courageous. She wasn't hiding out of malice, she was being authentic. And authenticity always carries risk when emotional safety isn't fully mutual. It's a moment where two valid human reactions collide. The bigger question becomes whether Daniel ever tried to reset after these shocks. Could he have reframed the situation, communicated, or absorbed the surprise without pulling back? Or did the combination of stress, past patterns, and external pressure make recovery harder? Because once instinct and fear take over, momentum builds fast, and what starts as hesitation can evolve into irreversible decisions. That momentum was already forming, laying the groundwork for the choices that would follow, and hinting at the legal steps Daniel eventually took. Hair was never the real issue. It was the spark that lit the room, the visible trigger for something deeper. The real fire was trust, emotional readiness, and the challenge of loving someone beyond an image. Every pause, every glance, every quiet withdrawal from Daniel pointed to layers viewers only glimpsed. The story that unfolded was less about what Lisa wore and more about how prepared Daniel was to handle truth. Look back at the early clues, the polished online image, the long-distance fantasy, the subtle off-camera nudges, the silent tension during filming. Each piece stacked, creating a pressure cooker environment where a small reveal could feel catastrophic. What seems dramatic on screen often has a quiet buildup behind it, invisible to fans. That's the pattern reality TV magnifies. When emotion, expectation, and insecurity collide, the fallout can be swift and irreversible. Lisa's courage in being authentic met Daniel's instinct to protect himself. One reached for connection, the other withdrew to safety. That contrast explains the shock, the heartbreak, and the intense debate viewers are still having. It's less about blame and more about human behavior under pressure. How fear, surprise, and past patterns shape decisions faster than reasoning can keep up. The bigger question now lands in your hands. Was Daniel acting out of self-protection? Or was he rejecting the real Lisa? Was this an unavoidable clash of emotional wiring? Or a failure to communicate before assumptions took over? There's no simple answer, but the tension, the heartbreak, and the silence offer a rare window into how complex trust really is. Because the spark might have been hair, but the fire has been trust and readiness all along. And knowing that changes everything you think you saw. And if you think this story is unique, think again. Other couples on reality shows navigate the same fragile balance between expectation and reality. And the patterns repeat in ways that feel inevitable. In our next video, we'll explore another high-profile couple facing the same emotional tightrope, showing how fragile love built on image can unravel when truth finally shows up. The next story is already waiting, and it promises to be just as gripping.